Okay, we are live. This is Elwin More from Society Hispanic Professional Engineers. I represent in the Region 7. We have Ever from what chapter you are, Ever?
Society of Houston chapter, Houston professional chapter.
Perfect. And I will present all of you Marvi Matos. That will be our main speaker. We can see your presentation, Marvi. If you want to show your face, you can switch and come back.
Okay, let's see if I can do that. Hi, I'm Marvi Matos. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can.
So my name is Marvi Matos. I live in Seattle. I work for a company called Blue Origin. We make rockets and engines. And I'm getting some feedback there. So there you go. You're gonna have to stop the recording.
There you go.
Ok, ¿por qué tuvimos ese feedback? Edwin?
No, you good now.
I'm good now? Okay.
Yeah.
Did you start the recording again?
No, it's running. It's running.
Okay. So I'm Marvi Matos, and I'm here to talk to you about your brand. So in terms of branding, for engineers, branding is sort of an elusive topic. We're good with numbers. Many of us are very good with analytical skills. Actually also good with marketing skills, and branding is more, within the marketing skills. What we're going to be talking about is not the brand, like the brand that you will have for your product, say your perhaps your product at your company, but your brand as it comes from your personal characteristics, and also from your work and the work that you produce as an engineer. So I'm gonna play a little bit here to get the presentation going. So let me go there and screen share. There you go. Can you guys see the presentation?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, awesome. So the first, the first point of where we're going is to understand what is a brand, right? So I found a definition in a business dictionary online, and we're gonna read it out loud, at least the first sentence, for us to understand what constitutes a brand. So a brand is a unique design, sign, or symbol, words, or a combination of these employed in creating an image that identifies a product and differentiates it from its competitors. So over time, this image becomes associated with a level of credibility, quality, and satisfaction in the customer's minds. So there's a portion of the brand of what you want the world to see, what you're pushing out, right, as your brand. And there's a portion of the brand that is what the world perceives of that brand. So, or of your product or of your company. And that is a very important distinction that we're going to use in this presentation. So when you think about the different brands, right, around the world, and these big companies, all of these symbols come, and all of these symbols can awake, a feeling or a thought or maybe a memory in you. So I want you to think about this first symbol and tell me, what do you think when you see this symbol?
A marathon.
Edwin?
Running like a marathon.
Yeah, Ever? That's exactly. So I also think about a marathon. So there are no right or wrong answers, right? This is just what we perceive. I see the Nike symbol and I think of running. What about you, Edwin? What do you think?
I also remember the Just Do It when I see the brand.
Yeah, so which basically might mean, perseverance and, attacking a problem and, dynamic energy. mean, that those are all very, sort of positive feelings, right? I mean, even a marathon, right? It's a lot of work. It requires a lot of energy. It requires training. So this is very intentional. The brand, the marketing campaign for Nike has been very, very successful, right? I would say, because when you see just this symbol, you don't even have to see the product. You're already thinking about, what Nike is in the context of your life and what you have seen. Now, when you see this symbol, what do you guys think?
Energy.
Ever? Anything?
Honestly, for me, it's diversity, because I know that the symbol represents other, like the oil spill, but he actually has a very good campaign here in Houston to promote diversity in their workforce. And there's a lot of billboards that they put up on that along the highway. So whenever I see this symbol, it really does remind me of diversity.
And when I see this symbol, I think about the different historical events, but I also think about my gas station, right? So some of the gas stations that we that we have might have this symbol on the right. They might actually be associated with the company. And so the point of showing these symbols is to say, okay, these just the little check mark, or just do it, or the BP mark, and that would that be a flower? What that symbol basically awakes in you a thought or feeling, maybe some memories, and that feeling and those memories, that's influenced by their marketing campaign, but it's also highly influenced by their actions, by the actions of the company and how we as a society use that brand. Now, I want you to think about your own brand. You as a person have, what could be a personal brand, and your work has a work brand. So how would you describe your brand? And I want you to take a piece of paper in front of you and write down, whatever comes to mind that you want your brand to be. And think about the following categories. Think about quality, right? What do you want your brand to be in terms of quality? Now, we're engineers, right? And we're technically oriented and technically, minded people. So I want you to think about perhaps your personal brand when it comes to quality, and your work brand when it comes to quality, whatever comes to mind. So now think about reliability. This is a really fast exercise because you're not going to be overthinking it. It's whatever comes, first to your mind. Reliability. So what do you think about your own reliability and the reliability of your work? Confidence. In that category, when you think confidence, okay, what do you think about? Performance. Collaboration. I hope you guys are writing down something. Communication. And then finally, technical skills. So in this contest, I've basically tried to group a sizable amount of different classifications or categories of how you can basically talk about or describe your brand and the brand of your work. And the idea here is to have a mix of technical and also soft skills, right? Because our work actually is highly influenced by not just our technical skills, but also our soft skills. So, and at the heart of all of this, at the center of all of this, is how can you, with your brand, develop trust? When you think about, the Just Do It symbol, or, the Nike symbol, I personally think of, my running shoes, right? And I trust that my running shoes will be perfectly fine for my 6-mile run, right? And those marathon runners that use the brand, they trust those shoes to be okay for their marathon running, right? So it's important that all of these things basically are distilled, and that you understand that they are at the center of it is how much people trust you and how much people trust your work. For an engineer, this is especially important, because if you're professional engineers, or if you're engineers in training or just graduated, right? You still, your work basically has to instill trust in people so that you can get more work in the future. So trust is super important. So now I want you to this is your homework. I want you to take those classifications on quality. We talk about performance, reliability, communication skills, and I want you to ask at work, maybe trusted co-workers, maybe your manager, or maybe a family member or a friend. You can ask them, think about me and my personal brand, and think about my work, and tell me in 3 words, what do you think my brand is? So what are characteristics that describe you and your work? And if they could write 3 words of your brand, what would they be? Then, as you are collecting these inputs, I want you to see if these characteristics that people described, right, in those 3 words, if they align or not with the brand that you want the world to see of yourself and of your work. And you will see that, maybe there's some overlap, but maybe there's some work to do, and that's perfectly fine, right? So what you're trying to show to the world doesn't necessarily align with what people perceive of you, and that's basically the work that you have to do when it comes to marketing your brand. And it's not about marketing from the standpoint of like, well, now I have to do a marketing campaign for me. It's about marketing with your actual work. So how can you do that?
Marvi, I have a question, if I may interrupt.
Yes, go ahead.
I think it would be helpful if you could give us some prompt words, examples or something, on what kind of words do you use to describe your brand in all those categories at work and personal.
Oh.
Sort of idea for what you're looking for. Because I'm not aware.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't know, am I supposed to say that my quality is high, low, medium, or is it some other words? I don't know.
I will give you some ideas. And so in all of these, understand that these, what we're trying to scratch is the tip of the iceberg, right? So it's like what people see, what people can like tangibly like describe. But a brand, I wanted to show this graphic to show basically that a brand is a lot of intangibles. When we think of a brand that we trust, of a product that we buy, and that we get every time, a lot of intangibles are this part of the iceberg that is like submerged, right? And so, but that's very good that you asked that question of, okay, how do you then describe your, like, what exactly are you talking about when, what are specific words? So let's go part by part. Okay. So, and it's good that you asked that, because you'll see that in the next slide, I actually talk about, some potential descriptions of what would be, good, potentially positive ways to describe your brand when it comes to quality. So, when it comes to quality, performance, reliability, and so on. So let's go part by part. So, an engineer's work, for an engineer's work, quality is super important. So what do I mean by quality? So is the product that you're making, whether you're working on something mechanical or you're working on a report, is the product that you're making efficient, safe? Is it excellent? And excellent is kind of like an elusive, is subjective, is a subjective word. So we will describe below, some information on where you can get more when it comes to technical excellence, where you can get more information. But so when it comes to quality, I want people to think of my work as high quality, no defects, right? So if somebody is reading a report, let's say I wrote a standard, and I'm a chemical engineer, so I wrote a standard for a material, or for how to properly, say, clean a part, or maybe I wrote a standard for materials compatibility on, the different chemicals that you're supposed to be using to get a part to be, I don't know, passivated or treated, or heat treated, oxidized, whatever it is, right? So when somebody reads that standard, I want people to see that the first time they read it, they see no defects in that standard. It can have tweaks, right? Because standards always go through review process before they are accepted and later implemented. But I want that standard to have, a first pass quality. The same way, say you're making maybe you're making an injector, right, part or a component, and you want that design to have no defects, or maybe you're machining a gear, and you want that machine part to have no defects. The idea of high quality, applies also to the reports, and it applies to written work. And for a lot of the work that we do as engineers, a lot of it is written work, right? So apply the high quality to your written work. And what I mean by that, ever, is like no defects. For example, I want my brand to be like high quality means no defects, first pass quality, right? So it's basically consistent with what is expected. And the next part is actually reliable. What do I mean by reliable? And when I think of reliable, I want people to know that I'm trustworthy and that I'm dependable. And that my way of operating is consistent. So basically, when you ask for me something, ask for me to do something, I will follow up, right? As a manager, this is super important. There's no better way to really develop trust in people than to follow up. If they are asking you for something and you're saying, yes, I'll do it, right? It's as simple as that. And that develops trust. So the next one is confident. So when you're confident about a brand, a product working, is what that means is that you have firm trust in the product. So confident and reliable, it's very similar in this context. You want to be basically your work and you personally to be trustworthy. So the next one is high performance. When I think of my own brand, I want people to see that I'm highly productive. So when they think of Marvi, I want people to think productive. When they think of my meetings, like if I'm going to be scheduling a meeting with them, I want them to think, well, that's going to probably be a work meeting because Marvi doesn't waste time, right? So that's the type of wording that they can use. Well, Marvi is productive. Maybe you want people to think of you as influential. Maybe you want people to think of you as courageous, as energetic, as dynamic, right? All of those things could be related to high performance and many more. So this is just, to give a few ideas. So collaborative. So collaboration is very, very important. What I see with people over their careers is that at the beginning of their careers, it's very good to develop that sense of independence and autonomy of your work. So you become a very good, individual contributor, and that's perfectly fine. But as you grow, as an engineer and your projects get bigger, or as you grow perhaps in management and your groups get bigger, you need to develop very good skills of connecting. And those skills are not like a switch that you just turn on, right? You have to develop those skills from the beginning. So in terms of your brand, then how do you want other people to think of you? Do they, should they think that you're a team player, or that you're, kind of like, no, that person stays, kind of like on their own corner, or in their own corner and do their own thing. Well, I want people to think of me that in the context of being a team player. I want people to think of me as being a connector, and that we can work together, right? So the next part is communication skills. So it's not just communication skills, but I want people to understand, like, okay, this person has great communication skills. And how can I say that? Well, the person is respectful. They are a good listener. So as you can see, communication skills are not like, oh, how you're just delivering a message, but are you listening to people? Are you actively listening? Are you open-minded, or are you shutting people down? And you will be amazed, like all of the examples that I and that you probably have collected, right? Of when you think of a person, shutting another person down, you probably have a few, faces in your mind. And when you think of people being open-minded and empathetic and clear and friendly and a good listener, you probably have faces in your mind. So those people have created their own brand based on their actions and behaviors. And finally, it's technical excellence. And these are just a few categories. I mean, you can, elaborate more or go into other categories that you are more interested in. But in terms of technical excellence for engineers, how precise are you? How accurate? How complete is your work? Is your work of high quality? Is it clear? And this is I think from an engineer's perspective, this is super important. There's an article I found there. You can type down the address. It's actually a really old, it looks like a really old journal. I'm not sure exactly when was it created, but it's from NASA. And you can find it at that site. And it describes what technical excellence is. Technical excellence as a phrase, could be kind of elusive to understand, right? So what does it really mean? So this article talks about it from the context of, engineering work. So does that answer your question ever? It was a very long answer, but you actually tapped into what was my next slide.
No, that's excellent. That's exactly what I was asking for. So thank you.
Okay, no problem. And so the next part here, before I finish, I want you to think about and see this idea of what is your personal brand versus what is your work brand. And these are just word clouds. You can find these all over the web, right? So if you like literally can write personal brand word cloud and you can find the one in the left, and you can find work excellence word cloud, and you can find the one in the right. The idea here is not for those words to be right or wrong in terms of the words that you find in the word cloud, but just the concept of it, right? So think of your personal brand as how people think of you as a person, right? And think of your work excellence brand as what people think of your work. And those two things are highly related. If you, for example, you're very friendly and you go and hang out every afternoon with people from work, that's excellent. That creates great relationships. But when you do that, you also have to admit and recognize that even the personal hangouts after work, that's going to still be a part of your brand, right? And so depending on the type of hangout that you do and the relationship building that you do, that's going to be influencing your work on Monday, right? Or on Tuesday or on Wednesday. And on the other hand, think of your work. Let's say that you're writing a standard, a report. You're making the design of a part. That is speaking volumes of you and who you are too as an engineer and as a person. And so these two things, even though, there's the brand of you as an individual and then there's the brand of your work, these two are highly they highly overlap and they're highly correlated. And people will give you more work or will give you less work depending on what they perceive of you, of your brand. And with that, that's it. That's it for the presentation today. Any questions?
Yes, I have a question. So I see that you have different clouds, and when I was doing the exercise, I couldn't differentiate between the two for me in terms of, because some of these don't apply necessarily in our personal lives when it comes to technical skills, for example. There can be different technical skills, right? I don't use my technical skills for work at home. I will be technical about the way I do things, but it's not the same. So yeah, that's what I was wondering. You know, like, do you think everybody has a different brand for personal and for work? Because I feel like my personality.
I don't think so. I don't think so.
Basis.
You're absolutely right, and I think that those two word clouds, I'm gonna probably be overlapping them. The idea here is you can develop your brand, for who you are as a person, and you can also develop your brand for the type of work that you do, and whether that work is first pass quality, for example, if it's on time, and so on. And the idea is to say, actually, they're coupled. So what people think of your work, they probably couple that in their brain with what they think of you as a person, and vice versa. What they think of you as a person, they couple it with, or they assume and they project a forecast of what your work would be. So, for example, you're a community leader, right? You organize events and you help the community there in Houston tremendously with your work, right, Ever? And so what people think of you, say, as a community leader, they probably extrapolate that to your work as an engineer too. So they would say like, well, wow, he, must be really excellent at work. And even though they might not work with you at your company. And so on the other hand, the things that they think of you also at work in terms of being reliable and being your work of high quality, time efficient, and so on, they probably think of you also as a person. They probably correlate that to you and your brand as a person. So they're highly correlated, they're highly coupled. It's very difficult to differentiate the two. And I'm not trying necessarily to differentiate the two, but just to say that actually they're coupled. So the messages that you send as a person can impact your work, and the messages that you send through your work can impact you as a person. Yes, go ahead.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I think you pretty much repeat the exact same thing of Simon Sinek, which is a motivational speaker, is people follows the why, not the how.
Yes, and I'm a great fan of Sinek. Yes, I agree. It's the why, right? Many times, and the why is basically, it's related to you and your brand and what people think of you. I was gonna share a personal, a very personal, no, super personal, but a personal experience. So recently with the event in Puerto Rico and Maria, the hurricane, right? There were a number of things that people organize all over the United States, all of the Puerto Ricans in the United States, and we're sending, a lot of help and so on. What I have noticed is that people that have a good brand, that are trustworthy, tend to actually be very successful with these kinds of things. So let's say that through their work, they have actually done, great work. And then through their work, they are asking for donations and things, to help the people in Puerto Rico. You can be very successful in doing community service, if you have a good reputation, basically. That's what it comes to. So you're trustworthy, people trust you, people will trust you with even their money and their donations. And That was a very incredible lesson that I got from the Maria event. You know, once we put out wish list in Amazon, and once we put out, I personally put out, you know, a PayPal account to help the people in Puerto Rico, you would be amazed like how quickly people responded. And it's all because they trust, you know, and to me, I felt really, you know, you feel that pressure of like, wow, all of these people really trust me. And I was amazed to learn that. And that is all about brand. It's been, you know, it's developing a reputation, developing, you know, a sense of trustworthiness. More questions?
I think you have some questions on the group chat.
Oh, let me see that. Okay, my camera is turning on. Oh, there you go. Okay, so there's a question here. How does your brand change when we work on different missions? So our work mission versus our personal mission, and how they're consistent. You know, say money driven, doing good. I think that I don't know if I have an answer to that question. I think that we do, that your brand definitely evolves as you're doing different types of work. So whether that is something that you do at work or something that you do around your community, your brand definitely changes. And so another, so I'm not sure I have a tangible, you know, answer for that one, but definitely your mission and your personal mission and your work mission are highly correlated. So something I always tell people is that I follow at work and personally, I follow two values. So, and they're more like two phrases. The first one is, you know, technical leadership, technical excellence, and they're not in like ranking order or anything, right? And the second one is servant leadership. And so everything that I do at work and everything that I do also in my personal life, they follow those. So technical excellence in my personal life is it means, you know, being on time and having, you know, high quality type of relationships. If I am doing community service, you know, it's also being reliable and so on. When it comes to work and technical excellence at work, well, that's my work as an engineer and as a manager, right? In terms of like servant leadership, that it's also correlated between my mission in life and as a person and with the community, and then my mission at work. That basically, me as a manager, do I care about people so much that I am there to facilitate their work, that I'm there to be their servant? If my personal opinion is that there wouldn't be any managers, that you don't need managers if you don't have people, right? And so therefore at the center of it is the people. Therefore the manager is there to serve the people and not the other way around. And that works really well. It has worked really well for me. I even sign my emails intentionally. I sign my emails as here to serve, right? I'm here to serve you. I'm here at your service. So I guess, you know, that's kind of how I combine my personal mission with also my mission in how I stay consistent with who am I personally, how I have high integrity, right? Who am I personally? Who am I at work? So, there's a question here from Edwin that says, how do you change your brand? That's very interesting. And that is a matter of, that's also what I mean about being intentional, right? So you're gonna have to, if there's what you want your brand to be versus what you want versus how people perceive you, right? If those two descriptions of your brand are different, then you have some work to do. And that's completely normal, right? Not everything that I want to send out to the world is what is perceived of me. So then you need to be more intentional about how you're basically working on, you're doing your work, or how you're communicating to people. So let's say that you want people to think of you as a great communicator, right? And you want people to know that you're very good you have very good communication skills. However, when you receive that perception of them, those 3 words that that homework that I sent you to do, what you get is something completely different, right? So now you have to do some homework of how to do that alignment. What does being a great communicator means to you? So personally, to me, it means that I'm listening to people. I am actively listening to them. So if somebody comes to me at work, I shut down my computer, and I put away my phone, and I am looking at their eyes, and I am, basically having that connection with the person, and I'm telling them, how can I serve you? How can I help you? And then I start taking notes of what they're telling me. I go back and tell them, okay, this is what you told me, right? Let's work together to solve this problem. And these are potential actions. Do you think these could be good actions that we can take to solve this problem? And so that engagement right there will speak volumes, right? And it will help with my communication skills, and hopefully it will help with my brand. And so if it's on reliability, right? How dependable are you? You want to increase your reputation when it comes to reliability. Well, it's as simple as be on time, be consistent, deliver your work, and follow up. Always deliver your work efficiently, so that the next time there's a big fire at work, okay, not literal fire, but like a hypothetical and a figurative, how can I say it? Just, when you have a fire at work, you can say, I'm actually here and I'm dependable. People can depend on me because in the last,
You mean chaos?
Big, in the last, big project at work, I was dependable. They could, they reached out to me and I acted promptly, right? So being reliable means, acting accordingly, people can depend on you. So for each of these characteristics, you can actually attach sort of an action that you can do in order to change your brand. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yes?
Yes. So,
okay,
Marvi, what are some behaviors that, I guess, something that's common to us Latinos, right? That may make our brand not look so good. For example, we're not always on time, especially for social occasions, even if it's work social occasions, right? Is that hurting our brand if we're not on time? Like if we come late to a party, even if it's a work party?
Yeah, unfortunately. And sometimes the problem with that is it doesn't only affect our brand as individual brands, like individually as a person and your reputation as a person, but it also reinforces a stereotype, which is another topic, right? So what are those stereotypes that people have of Latinos? What are those stereotypes that people have of Latinas, right? And then we have to ask ourselves, with our reputation and our work, are we reinforcing those? Or are we basically going against them and being a representative of our community that it's going against the stereotypes? And it could be very serious, right? Because let's say that there is a big emergency at work, but the reputation that we have, that is reinforcing maybe a stereotype. For Latinas, I've heard many different versions of hot-headed, It's like, oh, you're a Latina, you know, we have to be scared and like, because you can go all, you know, passionate and wild and so on. And it's true, I personally work with passion, but I know many other people that have very different personalities, right? And they all are all Latinos, and they all come from Puerto Rico, and or they all come from different places in America Latina. And the problem with your reputation and the problem with your actions too is that you're not only in the context of our community, you're not only representing yourself, you're representing the whole community. And for minorities, this is super important. And I you know, become more serious because these could hinder the opportunities of other people to enter a workforce based on, you know, the experience that they have with you, right? So I feel like I have a big responsibility in aerospace as a Puerto Rican woman working as an engineer and manager in making rockets and engines, because there's not that many of us. And therefore, if I want more Latina women and more Puerto Rican women to be in the same area of work and expertise, then I need to be a good representative, because inevitably that will be either, you know, reinforcing negative stereotypes, or that will be actually developing a good, you know, a good reputation for the community. Now, one of my strengths is that I'm a differentiator, which means that I actually treat people uniquely for who they are and what they are. So I try not to and tend not to stereotype. But I think that's inevitable, that most of us, you know, we make classifications, we make labels, we make stereotypes. And so absolutely, when you are thinking about your brand and you're thinking of coming late to a party or to a meeting or to a social event, yeah, that's definitely affecting your brand.
Right. Thank you.
No problem. Any other questions?
So one of the
Let me
big
see.
Go ahead.
You were saying one of the big things that I've tried to address both in SHPE Houston and at work at our employee Hispanic club is trying to change the stereotype of, you know, Latinos like to party. So I always stress that we shouldn't be calling our happy hour events or social gatherings as that. We should call it as what we actually want it to be, which is a networking event. So I always change the names to happy hours or get-togethers or social. When people want to call it a social, no, it's not a social, it's not a happy hour, it's a networking event. Just to change the branding. And it also changes people's mindsets as to how they see the event. They start now, instead of talking to their friends, the people that they normally talk to, they make it a point to make their way around the room to meet other people because of the name, just because of the branding of the event.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Drives a different behavior on other people.
And for women, you know, Latina women, there's so much stereotyping on TV. It's amazing, right? So one of the things that we see on TV with characters like, you know, Sofia Vergara's character in the show that she does, A Modern Family, her character is very colorful, you know, passionate, alive, and so on. But it's also, you know, the way she presents herself, right, as a Colombiana and as a Latina woman, it shows a lot about, you know, her body and so on. And so we immediately have these characters also in TV playing and enforcing those stereotypes. So something that I, as a woman, do very consciously at work is that I cover myself. And I do that, you know, because I think it's important for people to take my work and myself seriously. And I cannot continue to reinforce that that type of stereotype, because it's not necessarily compatible, right, with the type of work that I do. And I'm not saying that, you know, I go like, you know, completely serious and like all button up, but it's important for me to dress up adequately, and not to distract, right? Not to distract within the situation where we're in. And if I am working as an engineer, and say, imagine me working as there's a place and a time for everything. And if I'm working as an engineer, and I'm, you know, dressed up, you know, like Sofia Vergara, right? Would that be something that is appropriate for the occasion? Probably not. Yet, I have seen in many interviews, and I tell this to young women too, whenever I go to different engagements, and so to different like networking events, mentoring events, conferences, I tell them, you know, dress up adequately. Dress up. So the big heels and the, you know, the atuendo, right? The different suits and so on. Make it so that people are not distracted by that, that they can see you in your work. And there are all sorts of opinions on this. So I'm not saying that I'm correct, right? Because I also want, I want people to be themselves and to represent themselves. And if they feel comfortable dressing up as whatever, that's fine. But understand that that has consequences in people's minds, and whether or not they reinforce those stereotypes. And thank you for naming your happy hours as networking events. So if there are no further questions, we should probably conclude this talk. Thank you for being here. And thank you for your attention.
Thank you.
Thank you, Marvi. We really appreciate taking your day of relaxation to share your experiences and talk about personal branding that is very important in our life. So really appreciate everybody that had the chance to participate, and stay tuned to everyone. We are going to post a new date to give opportunity to others to participate in this interesting topic.
Well, thank you for the opportunity, and have a wonderful weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you.